Okay. LL, how's your day going?
It's a pretty quiet day. Like all the celebrating was yesterday. So it's a pretty quiet New Year.
You
And
guys
I'm
went to
at home.
family? Mm.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm happy to be home today since I've been feeling a little overwhelmed with every weekend having a holiday party.
Yeah, you're an introvert.
Yeah.
You ever have times where you do get more energy from the outside, from people?
Um, Thinking maybe concerts. But I get tired at those too. But I could maybe
Hmm.
see it. Maybe I felt something more at concerts.
Hmm. But you still don't get a recharge. Your battery is still drained from going there.
Yeah. Yeah, so I still need rest after that.
Why do you like metal so much? Do they call it heavy metal
I
still?
just call it metal.
Mm.
But yeah, I guess you could say that too. Um, like I have said before, it feels kind of like a controlled chaos of sorts. So
Mm.
maybe it's kind of like a little outlet for me.
Controlled chaos. So you have chaos that you need to let out a little bit.
Uh, Maybe not so much let out, but just kind of let myself, like permit myself to like be around or enjoy a little bit. And
But you said it's an outlet for you.
yeah, maybe that wasn't the correct word, but more like it's kind of like just kind of permitting myself a little like to be around something similar, but that's controlled and not completely uh out of bounds or anything.
Hmm. Still feel like I don't understand why you like it. Controlled chaos. I mean, all music is that way to some extent, right? I mean, it
Mm,
has a
mm,
certain order to it, but it has a lot of irrational energy. But
mm,
metal is maybe metal seems to have a lot more energy, kind of like rap.
mm,
Um, it's not as sort of laid back as like I don't know, soft rock or some less dramatic classical music or country or something.
mm. Yeah.
And the themes are often pretty even violent, either violent emotionally or actually violent, right? Like rap
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Um yeah, I've just always enjoyed it since I was a kid.
Hmm. What's your favorite type?
Mm. Well, according to Spotify, I seem to like alternative metal a lot.
What's that?
I think that's kind of a metal that doesn't like uh it's kind of more modern. So I think it started like in the 90s or 2000s. I think it has more like influences from other genres. So it can't really be like put into like a it just is called kind of alternative just to kind of describe that. So it has
Hmm.
sometimes it takes influences from like pop or rap or just other genres. So it's kind of maybe more experimental. But I don't know if I'm just completely wrong about this, but that's what I understand it as.
At a concert, do you ever feel sort of a dissolution of the self, a sort of melding or flowing with the music, with the other people, with the band members?
Yeah, I feel like a flowing with the music kind of feeling. So um yeah, yeah, I guess I would say maybe a little bit of that is going on.
Do you think it's at all akin to like a religious experience?
Mm,
There's certainly a lot of religious imagery in metal, particularly, isn't there?
yeah. Say maybe depending on where you are at the concert, maybe if you're like in the mosh pit, it feels more like a religious experience. because it's kind of a more like intense experience when you go in that. But I've never gone in one personally. But I would think it would be heightened or something for people that like to do that.
Might that not be like a demonic den in some ways?
Demonic Dan. Um, I don't know. I don't think all the time. Like, there's been times where like the lyrics are kind of like positive
I mean,
stuff,
the
so I
mosh
don't
pit.
think it's demonic Dan.
I'm
Um,
just kind of, as opposed to religious.
yeah, I don't know about that actually. I think I maybe have to get in one myself at some point just to see what I sense. But yeah, I guess there's lots of things like that are kind of like religion, I guess, on that surface at a concert. Like imagery, like you said, or there's always like a lots of times there's like a nickname for people that like the band. So that's what the band will refer us to us like certain names or things like that. Um, then there's like
You mean like a name that indicates that you're a follower, sort of that
yeah,
band?
yeah, like a follower. So like each band had not all of them, but sometimes they have different names for people or
Can
fans.
you tell us one?
I think if you go to a Slipknot concert, they'll call bands like maggots. It's funny. But I think it's referring to a song, one of their top songs. But then if you go to like a Disturbed concert, it's not as they don't call you bugs, but he'll call you like my friends or and something else. Uh my friends and I forgot. Uh yeah, it's something else. Maybe Disturbed ones, but I don't know.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's like some bands do that.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about saying about friendship goes something like an acquaintance is someone who will help you move. A friend is someone who will help you move a body. What do you think about that?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I guess it's saying that it's talking about loyalty in a way. But not maybe I'm kind of not unwavering kind of loyalty to kind of well, we
Yeah, and
don't know the
maybe.
circumstances of moving said body, but
Mhm,
um yeah, it seems like it's hinting at that to me.
mhm. Yeah, like you would help a friend do something, even when they did something immoral and maybe something terrible that could have very bad consequences for you too. And that's a real sacrifice.
Yeah. But then that also kind of leads me to think, but then I hear other people say friends are people that will tell you when you're wrong. So I think there's differing ideas here.
Yeah. Well, the circumstances are a little different if the body is already there. I mean, it's a fiat accompli. But yeah, I do think a true friend will be someone who helps you to become a better person, and that involves self-criticism or, criticism of yourself from someone else. Have you ever criticized a friend?
Mhm. Um, well, I think I've criticized you sometimes. Yeah,
Yeah, I think you've reminded me of some things sometimes, and sometimes
yeah,
things that I've said to you about myself that are kind of self-critical.
yeah. I think one time I wasn't happy with how I thought you were treating someone, so I kind of told you.
Yeah.
Um,
What do you think about my response? And I kind of defended myself. I thought
uh,
actually it wasn't really. I thought maybe you were seeing it and as much more harsh, but actually the person had done something wrong that I was trying to sort of address.
Yeah, actually, I don't remember. There was much, so I don't remember my thoughts on it. But I kind of have vague recollections of you kind of responding that way.
Do you have a recollection of whether you thought I was fair in my sort of thinking
Mm,
about it?
I don't know. I think I still felt like it should have you shouldn't have acted how you did.
Yeah, maybe it was too harsh. I did wonder about that and I did feel bad about it. It was a complicated situation, I
Mm,
guess, a lot at work, a lot of ambiguity.
yeah.
I mean, I think I read once that ambiguity leads to a lot of, I think in relationships, ambiguity can lead to a lot of confusion and therefore sort of unhappiness and sort of counterproductive activity.
Mm,
One does need mystery, and one cannot delineate everything. And especially, I think in personal relationships,
mm,
there needs to be a lot of clarity, but also a lot of you know understanding underneath the surface,
mm,
things that don't need to be delineated completely.
mm,
Uh, but yeah, but in work relationships, maybe
mm,
there's less room for unclear kinds of things.
mm. So I remember that instance, and then I think I've maybe kind of passively criticized friends, like when I think their manners are lacking, things like that. Um, remember I had one friend where they wanted to sit at a business where we hadn't purchased food so that we can eat food from we purchased from somewhere else. And yeah, I kind of told them that, like unless we purchase something from said business, it probably wouldn't be allowed and we should just find elsewhere to go. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
How much of that was what was correct, and how much of that was just because of your discomfort?
Uh, that's hard. I think it was both. So I don't, yeah, I wouldn't feel comfortable knowing I'm breaking a rule. And then at the same part, I think I thought the etiquette was that if you're taking a business's space, you should at least, uh, buy something from them. Is out of kind
Yeah.
of courtesy too.
Yeah, I tend to think
So I
that
think
way.
it was both.
So did you guys compromise by him sitting down at the table and you standing outside awkwardly, looking in, waiting?
Uh, we just found elsewhere to sit.
Yeah. So would you help a friend move a body?
Mm. Well, I can't give it. I feel I can't give an answer
Are
just
you a
because the
friend?
circumstances. Mm.
Yeah. Well,
Well, it would depend.
are there any circumstances in which you would help a friend move a body? Or you can walk us through your thought process.
I don't know because I felt even if there was a good reason for it, I felt practically it'd be very hard to get away with it for a long time. So,
So in that case, would you not help him or her, but just never tell anybody about it?
um,
See,
I
it's
feel
even
like
a hard one that in that case too.
yeah, I feel like maybe I would try to persuade them to just call the cops because I feel eventually that they'll be found out and the punishment for them could be harsher than if they had just, called the cops and kind of turned themselves in. Uh,
Yeah. You're kind of going
so
for the practical implications though, but I think this is more like a moral dilemma kind of situation. I think that's where more the uh the room to kind of wrestle with the thought comes. So let's say
yeah,
there's not, let's say you know, it was an ambiguous type of situation. Your friend was sort of felt like he was forced to do it. Uh, you know, and now really needs help. It's not, we're not talking about someone who's like a serial killer or a violent person, generally a good person, things like that. And you're relatively sure that if you help him, like you won't there won't be practical repercussions. There will be moral repercussions, which I think is part of the the problem, but it's not, those repercussions don't come primarily from the the morality of the act itself, but more just having to, you're sharing this burden of knowing this thing, you know.
Mm. Well, I think I was kind of using the practical, uh, like repercussion just to kind of maybe cover it. Like I feel like it's something I wouldn't want to do, like a moral standpoint. Uh,
In a way, you could say though that so you don't want to do this because it's a personal risk to yourself.
mm,
You're not sounding like a good friend.
um,
I
I,
have felt, I haven't wrestled with this particular one that much myself, but I felt like it's a really hard one.
I know because I feel like a friend too also doesn't bring unnecessary risk to another friend. So I
Let's
feel
say
like
it
if
is
I,
necessary though.
yeah.
Let's say it is necessary. There are times in life. I mean, the thing is, we in the first world in America, we don't think of these kinds of things because we live in a time of overabundance
Mm,
and rule of, very good rule of law and all that stuff in general.
mm,
But you and I both have relatives from other places where this could be much more, situations like this much more could come up
mm,
every day, not dead bodies, but yeah, real life is, I think, much more dependent on people and therefore friendships.
mm,
And this is obviously an extreme example, but I think it's important to understand ourselves and morality to kind of think through these things and not
mm,
just depend on law and yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the friend would not be asking you to help him move a body if he did not need the help. I mean, practically, he wouldn't take that risk.
mm. I don't know, it's like
Would
I
there
feel
be
maybe uh, sorry.
would there be any circumstances in which you would, the way to think about it is to think of the extreme situation. Would there be any circumstances you would not help him move a body? Would there be any circumstances where you would help him move a body? The first one is easy. Like if the more direction you go in terms of like, oh, you realize he is like a genuine threat, a danger, violent person,
Mm,
sadistic, cruel, evil. That's the
mm,
more it goes in that direction, the more you're not going to help him move the body, and the more you're going to turn him in or something like that.
mm,
The the I think the difficulty of the situation lies in the other end of the spectrum, where are there any edge cases where you would help him move a body? Where
like
maybe it was a complete accident. This other person was an evil, violent killer that was going after him repeatedly, and he, in defending himself, he did something, but it looks really, really bad. Where maybe there's a seems like there's a 90% chance where he would be convicted,
mm,
you know. And then
Well,
you could say, well, you live in a and you could say, well, we could still try to get a really good lawyer or something. But then I would say, okay, let's say you're living in a society, a really corrupt society. This other person is really with the authorities, and your friend is not. So there's like a 99% chance of conviction and terrible life and all that stuff.
mm,
You really don't want to help him move the body, huh?
yeah. Well, I feel maybe I wouldn't want to touch the body myself in any sort of way.
Oh, come on.
Maybe I would just give them ideas or like
You're
have them make
avoiding
it
it,
look like they
this.
weren't involved.
Okay.
Mm.
You would at
Yeah,
least
I
keep the
really don't
secret.
want to. Yeah, I feel like I
Well,
would at least
said. I feel
just
like
keep
I'm
not
learning
say
something about
anything.
you today. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
learning something about you. Okay, I guess that's why this saying exists.
Yeah, I feel like I would just not say anything at least and pretend I never knew about it.
Don't you think part of a relationship is willing to get your hands dirty? Like if you're close to that person.
Mm. No, it's like I feel like there's things like you just shouldn't ask of people, no matter how close they are. Yeah.
Sometimes people really need the help.
Mhm.
You won't budge.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Well, next topic. Do you feel lonely ever?
Mm. I think sometimes in the past I have, and I feel like maybe to a certain extent we're all just kind of alone. Uh, not lonely. I mean, maybe to a certain extent, maybe just our own experiences and stuff is kind of lonely in a way. Uh, as kind of
What do you
like
mean?
individuals. Uh,
Every man is an island?
no, but just that we're all kind of in a way we're kind of on our own trying to figure things out in life and stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
every man is an island.
yeah, and like
We
and
come into this world alone, we die alone.
yeah, I say I'm not sure though, alone and lonely are different things. Maybe I'm thinking more that in some ways we're alone in the world. Um, I think for lonely, I think, yeah, there have been times I felt like that more when I was younger. Um, then as I've gotten older, I kind of,
What's the difference?
I think when you're alone, you're happy that way, or you're content,
No, I'm
and you
saying
don't.
what you said when you were younger and when you were older. As you got older, you got less lonely.
I think maybe it's just with maybe like a tendency of youth to immaturity that we kind of view ourselves as kind of more separate from the world than we really are.
Hmm.
So I think that contributed to my sense of loneliness, and then just all the experiences I had before kind of made me detached from people,
Yeah,
but still,
emotionally detached.
yeah,
Hmm.
but still wanting relationships and connection. But I kind of didn't know how to do that, and I'm still kind of figuring that out.
Yeah, if you're emotionally detached, it's hard. You're not tracking other people's emotions
Mm.
and they begin to sort of see you as separate in some way.
Yeah, yeah. So I started viewing myself as separate a lot, and I just created loneliness. And I still kind of feel detached from people around me, but I'd say it's not as bad as before.
Yeah,
Um,
that's good.
it's still something I'm working on.
Yeah. How do you get to be less detached around people?
I kind of had to force myself to interact. So I think a lot of the growth took place in college. Um, since I was feeling lonely then, and I got into like a really deep depression at the time.
Yeah.
Um, but just coping with the new like stresses of college academics, and then going in this school with like 40,000 people. Uh, I just felt kind of, and I also was kind of alone in a dorm room, since usually people get dorm mates, but I wasn't assigned a dorm mate. I was just assigned to be alone. So
Oh, I didn't know that. Huh.
yeah, so yeah, so all those things kind of amplified that lonely feeling. But then I decided to kind of try out activities and clubs once I had enough of it. So,
That's
and I
good.
was, yeah, and
Was
I
that
was
kind of
very
hard to
anxious.
join those?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. But then I showed up to fencing because it looked cool, and I met my friends there.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah, shared interests is a good way to meet people.
yeah. So yeah, it's a
Yeah,
lot
and
of
to
things you kind of, it's you
yeah, go
have to
ahead.
be proactive, even though that's hard to hear, but you do
Yeah,
have to be.
yeah, but it makes sense. I mean, one has to change how one lives and thinks in order to change
Mm,
one's life. I mean, one thing goes with another. Uh, and the reason you haven't done it already is probably because it's a little bit difficult,
mm, yeah.
but you can
So yeah,
change too.
yeah, it's hard because it's hard to be proactive. It's easy to be passive and just hope something comes to you.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's not the case most of the time.
Well, yeah, it won't happen. Well, anything else you'd like to talk about this week?
Yeah, I just want to ask if you feel lonely.
Yeah, I think I read you that passage from my journal.
Mm,
Um, yeah, I honestly don't know what that loneliness that I've been talking about is. Loneliness is a word that means a person feels sad and desires human contact. I often feel this way, so I'm often lonely. However, I suppose I do not really consider it a real problem. I do not feel lonely when I've had enough contact that day. And then I started talking about relational fulfillment or sort of life
mm,
fulfillment be in the in the realm of relationships, and I'm really lacking in that. Yeah, I've recently moved, as you know, across the country. And yeah, I really need, yeah, I have a very big need for philosophical conversation and deep relationships, deep kind of, you know, conjugation or communion. So yeah, and that's part of the reason I'm doing this podcast.
mm,
Yeah. But yeah, I think there's, you can look at it like yeah, you feel lonely when you need a sense of human contact, and that contact can come from even like a 5 minute conversation with a
mm,
stranger on the bus or something. Uh but what yeah, what I need is on a deeper level is not what I guess I mean by loneliness, but there is more like, yeah, some kind of need for deeper communion, kind of,
mm,
and that's an interesting thing. I mean, that's not only with another person. That's sort of, I think John Vervaeke talks about, yeah, how there's like a third self or something like that when two people really flow with each other. Uh, and sort of connect deeply, there's like a third thing that's produced or something like that. And
mm,
yeah, kind of have a need for that.
mm.
That's yeah, where your deeper soul, your minds are connected and there's yeah, dissolution of self and things like that. A little like what I was wondering about with when I mentioned religious experience and when I was asking about that with metal
Mhm.
concerts. So yeah, so I think the word loneliness does not indicate that exactly. But that's yeah, there's a deeper sort of need to connect that I have. And ultimately I view this as like actually a need to be reborn, to be transformed. But I like the word reborn, um,
Oh,
born into a new life.
yeah,
So
I've never heard this part. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, this is something that I don't know if yeah I haven't talked about with you, but yeah, that's kind of into like in to use a kind of quotidian word into to like a new role in life.
Mm.
So I feel like I haven't played the role that I'd like to play, and this podcast I think is part of that. Will be part of that in the future, but we'll see. Okay, well, anything else from you or Mr. Bunny up there?
Well, me and Mr. Bunny didn't hear if you would hide a body for a friend.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so thinking about the edge case when I would, there that does exist for me, I think. And yeah, if it's unavoidable. I mean, ultimately when you're thinking about like the level of friendship, I guess, or the quality that you have, you're thinking about what would you do for yourself. Like the better a friend you are, the more you would do for someone else anything that you would do for yourself. So I would think that if there were a situation where somehow you were in like a corrupt country, this person was harassing you, threatening you, and tried to kill you, but after you defended yourself and they are dead, there's like 199% chance you will be, tortured and go to jail forever. Would you not try to hide that act that was only a crime in a corrupt legal system? I think you would do that for yourself. So the question is, are you a good enough friend to help someone else do that? And so I guess I would do it in that case, I think, or I'd like to think that I would. Of course, the real test is whether you would do it, whether in that situation you would. Um, but yeah, I think I would. Now stepping back from that kind of edge case, how far would you go? Yeah, I think conversation would be important. Obviously, in this type of situation, what makes it such a good problem is that time would be limited and sort of emotional bandwidth to have a conversation. But you would have to have that conversation with yourself and with that person. Now, we're only have the conversation right now with ourselves, and this is a good thing to think about. Um, yeah, but like I said, I haven't thought about it enough, but I would say that yes, I would have to seriously consider it because there's a broader question of how good a person are you if you're not a good friend? We like to think of ourselves as good people, and I want to make myself a better person. Uh, and doesn't that mean making myself a better friend? So, in thinking about what a good friend is, the more I theoretically conform to that, the better a person I am. So, yeah. So I think this one's a real doozy. But yeah, I would think this kind of thing would be a real test of your mettle, a real test of who you are as a human being. how good a friend you could be when there is risk or sacrifice called for. And I would like to think that I would sacrifice a good deal for a friend. There's also the idea that you should choose your friends wisely. So it would be kind of a strange situation to be called on to really help someone and to sacrifice for them if you do not consider them a very good friend. In fact, yeah. And this is relevant to someone like me, and I think someone like you too, that maybe have some people pleasing tendencies. Um, yeah. What if there's someone in your life that thinks of you as a good friend because you're nice to them and maybe they don't have many friends or something? And
Mm.
then they really ask you to like stick your neck out for them, but you know, to you, he or she is just kind of a passing acquaintance or something, you know. I mean,
Mm.
you kind of just don't want to go through that much effort or you don't want to sacrifice. It doesn't seem worth it. So, shouldn't you have been more clear with that person maybe?
Yeah, I was yeah, I was like, I don't want to hide a body earlier, but then I was just thinking a few minutes ago that I always do things for people, even when I don't want to, just to make them happy. So maybe I would end up doing it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
This is a little bit like religion by following rules or something where you don't, it's like Hamlet's stepfather praying, but the words don't go up to heaven. He's just mouthing the words. So you're doing it to make them happy, but you don't really want to do that.
Mhm.
Mm. Is this anything like withdrawal or detachment, where you're just doing things because it's expected or you're supposed to, but your heart is not in it?
Um, I never made the connection, but there's probably something there. Or maybe I've struggled with loneliness so long, like I want to salvage or preserve any relationships I do have.
Yeah, but at some point, authenticity is important too, right? You
Mhm.
want to feel really connected to your life. You want your life to be you,
Yeah.
and of course, there's always differences, but yeah, you don't want there to be too much of a barrier between those two things.
Hmm.
I think some people like commit suicide sometimes just because it's like, you know, if there's 100% difference between who you are to everybody else and what you feel like inside, right? Isn't that a hell?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think in the four agreements, maybe before we go, the first one, which is supposed to be the preeminent one, uh, be impeccable with your word. I think that has a lot to do with this, to where when your words agree with yourself and with others, or and with the world, that can really help you to sort of live a happy, fulfilling, good life, moral life. So yeah, maybe be careful who you say yes and no to, I guess. Or maybe in your case, and maybe my case, be careful who and what you say yes to.
Mhm.
And don't be so afraid to say no, politely, gently.
Yeah, that's something I need to practice.
Okay. Well, maybe make mental notes and we'll get back to each other next time
Mm-hmm.
about that. Saying
Sounds
no
good.
and saying yes. Okay. Well, it's good talking to you.
In here.
Okay. Take care.